Hello Internet, it's Josh from CollectionDX. I got another review. Surprise, surprise. This is the Chogokin Tower of the Sun from Bandai Tamashii Nations. Now, this is an odd one. If you don't know what this is, I'll give you a very brief history, but read the full review on CollectionDX for like a really good breakdown. In 1970, Japan hosted their first World's Fair. At that fair, they constructed a number of unique buildings and structures to represent, Japan and to accommodate all the other nations. One of those structures was a building named the Tower of the Sun. So this is not just a statue, it's an actual building. It's very, very tall. And this building was a bit controversial because it was unorthodox, but it was done by a famous Japanese sculptor. And the idea of this is it represents the past, present, and future of Japan. So there are three heads on this statue. You have the future head, the present head, and of course, the past head. So this was a really iconic feature of this fair, and as the years went by, the building around the statue, there was a building around the building basically that got demolished, and then nature kind of took its course and really wore down the Tower of the Sun. And it wasn't until the mid-90s, I think, that they redid it and kept it nice, moved it, I think, or they did something with it, I don't know, but they refurbished it. And it's been on and off, open and closed up until just this year. And I don't know if it's actually open right now, but it's hollow inside. And inside it has a giant tree of life. And hanging from that tree are various dinosaurs and creatures that were made by Surabaya, who did Ultraman. So it's kind of an interesting thing. It's an interesting icon in Japan that's really kind of unknown to Westerners. In the written review, I liken it to like the St. Louis Arch, in that it's a very recognizable national landmark. It does not transform into a robot in real life. There's no thing. And it's just kind of I don't know why they decided to do this, but they said, hey, let's take this beloved Japanese landmark and make it a robot. So we are going to look at that robot. It is a Chogokin. It's part of their 40th anniversary of Chogokin. It's really cool. So let's kind of look at some of the features here. First of all, you'll notice the texture is really interesting. It's kind of almost like a stucco plaster texture around the outside. And that is much like the texture of the original building. It is, it has that kind of stucco masonry feel, but I like that they tried to replicate it here. The majority of the outer bit of this whole thing is in fact plastic. The only thing that's metal right now is the face, this face in the front. Alright. It's got a pretty satisfying transformation. Let's go through that now. Oh, you also notice that there's a base, and it says Tower of the Sun in Japanese right there. Alright, so to transform, it's kind of neat. Open up these panels, like so. Pull this arm out. Close the panel. And this comes down and in. This goes up. And you'll also want to pull this section down. And you're going to repeat that on both sides. The hands are on a ball joint, and they have a movable finger joint, but it's one finger. It's not all of the, they're not independently articulated. The thumb doesn't move either, but you do that on both sides. The next section that we do is the feet, and we basically just take these, pull them down like so, and it pulls the torso down, and then you split the feet apart. There's a nice tight ball joint, clicky legs, clicky feet. These feet are metal, and that's where most of the weight is. This base opens up to accommodate the feet, which is a nice touch. And you notice now it says Robo. Well, no Robo. So no is just like, you know, Tower of Sun Robo. It has these two little dangly, kind of odd placement, but the Japanese don't seem to care about that. Vents. There's two posable rockets, I'd call it. One out the ass and one in the front. Just give him a little tickle. He likes that. He likes it when you tickle the front. Alright, so that is robot mode. Robo mode. But there is another mode that we can check out. This other mode is called Super Weapon Activated Form. Don't you love names like that? In this, you open up the front door and you get a series of 3 gold chrome weapons, blasters or such, and then these open up above. Sorry, these open up, and you have this. Now you have an articulated head. That all these joints are all articulated, all plastic. These joints, as well as the inside, but these doors are metal. So I mean, there's metal. It's not super die cast or anything, but there's a, you know, it's got a good solid feel to it. So notice that there's this red texture in here. If you go online and look for the interior of the Tower of the Sun, you'll see that the walls are actually lined with that red material, this red grid-like material, which is kind of cool. Another cool attention to detail is, remember I talked about that tree of life that lived inside the monument, the building? Well, you can actually see that they stickered up the inside, so you actually have a representation of that tree of life that you can only really see if you have these panels exposed. They're just a nice touch. I think it was a nice touch anyways. So this is a unique piece in that you know, you're not gonna most audiences are not gonna know what this is. You know, they're just not gonna understand or care of what this is. But it's just got an interesting looking robot mode. And I think that that look appeals to fans of Japanese robots in general. One last thing to show is that there are swappable hands. There we go. Sorry about that. So you can see that these hands are a little more splayed, and yeah, you wouldn't get these fingers to stick into the building inside at all. So they're just a little more aggressive looking, I guess. So, like I said, it's neat, it's unusual looking. I think it looks really cool, and what I like about it is it's almost like a stealth toy. Like, you could put this on your shelf, you know, in the mode of the building, and nobody would be any the wiser. So saying that you could, you know, just make this its statue again, essentially, and it just looks like a piece of art on your shelf. You know, nobody has to know Japanese history. Oh, some nice. I didn't show you the texture on the bottom of the feet there. You can just put it on and just be like, oh yeah, it's just a little sculpture or something. You know, it doesn't have to be super nerdy, I guess, even though it kind of is super nerdy. But you get the idea. Oh, that's kind of cool. Just something like that. You're like, I'm just handy. Chogokin 40th anniversary Tower of the Sun Robo from Bandai Tamashii Nations. Thanks for watching. This is Josh from CollectionDX. Oh, this was of course brought to you by Bluefin Tamashii Nations, and you can grab this guy wherever Bluefin Tamashii Nations products are sold. This is Josh from CollectionDX. We will see you next time. Bye. Oh, did that just not record? Son of a bitch.